Another title shot, another heartbreak for the Belarusian juggernaut, Aryna Sabalenka. She let a Grand Slam slip through her fingers again, and the outlook is grim. But hold on, because the plot thickens right here. The renowned coach Patrick Mouratoglou just weighed in heavily on the controversy surrounding Sabalenka's collapse against Aryna Rybakina at the Australian Open. Believe me, he dropped some bombshells that have set the entire tennis community on fire. Let's dive deep. When you analyze the raw numbers and total points tallied by both athletes, the margins were razor thin across the board. Consequently, the outcome hinged entirely on the decisive moments. Rybakina secured 24 high-stakes points, while Sabalenka only managed 15. That is a massive gap. With Sabalenka faltering in 3 out of 4 major finals, Mouratoglou spoke with brutal honesty. He stated unequivocally that Aryna Rybakina didn't just claim victory through skill alone. She won because Sabalenka was battling her own demons from the opening serve. In Mouratoglou's view, the instant Rybakina snatched that first game, Sabalenka's poise evaporated. From that second on, her emotions spiraled out of control, and that psychological implosion paved the way for her downfall. Mouratoglou wasn't just offering vague theories, though. He came armed with hard data. He highlighted a telling metric regarding pressure points, those make-or-break instances that define true champions. The stats? They paint a devastating picture for the Belarusian star. During those critical rallies, Rybakina claimed an impressive 25 points, dwarfing Sabalenka's meager 18. A 7-point gap in a major final is monumental. It is the razor's edge between hoisting the silverware and watching from the sidelines. Mouratoglou insists this chasm wasn't about athleticism or technical skill. It boiled down to psychological fortitude, or rather, Sabalenka's complete absence of it. And guess what? The coach is spot on regarding her mental blocks. We are witnessing a recurring nightmare. Following her loss to Rybakina in Melbourne, Sabalenka broke down in tears right there on the court. Listen, we are only human, and passion drives sport. However, there lies a deeper issue. Rather than bowing out with grace and acknowledging the winner, Sabalenka fell back on her usual routine of sobbing, making excuses, and deflecting blame. It has to be gut-wrenching for her, likely haunting her thoughts regarding that final set. The issue isn't the raw emotion following a defeat, which is entirely natural. It is about a habitual refusal to admit that the woman across the net simply outplayed her. She seems incapable of accepting that her rival was the superior athlete on the day. Instead, she turns inward, obsessing over her errors and her mindset. Mouratoglou hit the nail on the head. Sabalenka fails to validate her competition. She denies them the respect due to equals, or in this case, the victors. Trapped in that bubble of self-pity and frustration, she blinds herself to any lessons her opponents could teach her. There is no adaptation. There is no evolution. Consequently, she finds herself on the losing end repeatedly. Now, here is the twist. Aryna Rybakina has a history of infiltrating Sabalenka's psyche and coming out on top. Their shared past makes Sabalenka's inability to credit Rybakina even more baffling and, honestly, worrisome. Rewind to just last year when Rybakina took her down at the WTA finals. High stakes, grand stage, monumental pressure, same story. Back then, Sabalenka was so drunk on confidence, so sure of her dominance, that reports suggest she even snubbed her own coach mid-match. Unbelievable, right? The hubris radiating from her was thick enough to cut with a knife. When Rybakina shattered that illusion by winning, it should have been a siren call for Sabalenka, a crucial chance to learn. That loss should have instilled humility and the realization that psychological steel is just as vital as raw power. Evidently, she missed the memo completely. So here we stand, watching Rybakina triumph in another major final, and the reaction hasn't changed one bit. The waterworks are flowing, the excuses are stacking up, and any acknowledgement of her opponent remains painfully non-existent. What makes this situation truly alarming is that this pattern isn't isolated to her feud with Aryna Rybakina. This toxic habit of minimizing her competition and denying their brilliance bleeds into matches against other rivals too. Let's rewind the tape to the championship match at the US Open last season, when Coco Gauff seized her maiden major title with a stunning comeback against Sabalenka. It was a seismic event for the American teenager, a legacy-sealing triumph that stamped her passport as a bona fide superstar. The entire global tennis community stood up to applaud this coronation of a genuine prodigy. But how did Sabalenka digest that history-making loss? You know the drill, same old story. Aryna doubled down, insisting Coco wasn't necessarily the better player, claiming the loss was purely a result of her own errors. She completely undercut the victory, shifting the spotlight away from Gauff's resilience, and turning the narrative into a monologue about her own failures rather than Coco's success. She effectively said, "She didn't play amazing tennis. I just handed it to her by missing. All those routine shots that look like practice balls from the sidelines, it was classless back then, and it remains ugly today. The real villain here is her psychology." This aligns perfectly with what Patrick Mouratoglou highlighted regarding those critical high-stakes moments. When the trophy is inches away and the tension is suffocating, your brain matters infinitely more than your biceps. You can't rely solely on raw athleticism to carry you across the finish line. At the summit of the sport, everyone crushes the ball. The true titans are defined by what's happening inside their skulls. Rybakina claiming 25 big pressure points against Aryna's 18 paints the entire picture for us. When the heat was cranked up to the max, Elena remained cool, collected, and totally self-assured. She backed her technique, hit her marks, and refused to doubt the outcome. The heartbreaking reality is that Aryna possesses every physical tool required to dominate this era. She has the brute force, the team, and the financial backing. She just lacks the humility to absorb a loss. Until she swaps the tears and justifications for some honest film study on why her rivals are dismantling her psyche, this self-destructive cycle will never end. We are stuck in a loop. Remember, Mouratoglou has mentored legends for decades. He has stood in the corner for some of the absolute icons of this sport. So when he diagnoses this as a psychological implosion rather than a physical failure, we need to listen up. The man knows the recipe for greatness, and he has surgically exposed Sabalenka's fatal flaw. The million-dollar question remains, is Aryna finally ready to hear the hard truth? Can she finally shatter this ego-driven habit of denying her opponents their due respect? Will she forge the steel nerves required for clutch moments? Or are we destined for a rerun? Another championship Saturday, another collapse, and another presser filled with weeping and rationalizations. Aryna Rybakina has now demonstrated twice that she owns real estate inside Aryna's head. Coco Gauff pulled the exact same move in New York. The proof is undeniable. Mouratoglou has exposed the blueprint, and now the ball is squarely in Sabalenka's service box. The physicality is elite, but until her emotional maturity catches up, these heartbreaks will persist. I want to hear from you guys. What is your take on this ongoing drama? Is Patrick spot on about her fragility? And can she evolve into a serial winner of multiple majors? Or is this self-sabotage just part of her DNA now? Sound off in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this deep dive, smash that like button, subscribe to the squad, and ring the bell so you never miss an update. Catch you on the next one. Stay obsessed with the game.